Imagine you were just a regular guy in your early 20s. If somebody was to tell you that before your late 30s, you would have participated in a military coup d'etat, fought against your fellow countrymen in one of Africa's bloodiest civil wars, and rise to the position of head of state to one of Africa's largest economies. You would think this is a story straight out of Hollywood, but oftentimes reality is far more peculiar than any work of fiction.
Fellow Nigerians, events of the past few years have indicated that despite our great human and material resources, the government has not been able to fulfill the legitimate expectations of our people.
In this video, we explore the rise and fall of General Murtala Muhammad, one of Nigeria's most tragic head of state.
Murtala Ramat Muhammad remains the youngest Nigerian head of state to die in office and the only one to die before the age of 40.
Now, in order to fully appreciate the sequence of events that led to the rise, fall, and ultimate assassination of General Murtala Muhammad, we need to paint a picture of post-colonial Nigeria.
Upon gaining independence from Great Britain in 1960, the newly formed Nigerian Republic was greatly divided as its three largest ethnic groups struggled to live in harmony. Beyond the more obvious distinctions like language, clothing, and marriage customs, Nigeria's three main ethnic groups also had fundamental differences in values and worldviews, which had been developed over the many centuries leading up to the colonial era and the formation of the Nigerian state.
General Murtala Muhammad was born on November 8, 1938 in Kano. This is in the northern part of Nigeria. This seemingly random event would play a major role in his life, but more on that later.
One thing I've noticed, Premier, while I've been here, is that Northerners seem to have, I might almost call it, obsession about the Igbos. Could you perhaps explain that to me?
Well, the Igbos are more or less the type of people whose desire is mainly to dominate everybody.
General Murtala Muhammad lived a fairly inconspicuous life up until his early 20s when he decided to enroll in the Nigerian army, a decision that was about to propel him onto the national stage.
With the second highest death toll of all African conflicts, the Nigerian Civil War, also known as the Biafran War, is perhaps the single most significant event in Nigerian history. This three-year conflict, which raged on from the 6th of July 1967 till the 15th of January 1970, would claim the lives of over 100,000 soldiers and an estimated 2 million civilians, as the Nigerian government led by General Yakubu Gowon fought to prevent the secession of the self-proclaimed Republic of Biafra, which was led by General Chukwuemeka Odumegu Ojukwu.
Remember what I told you about General Murtala Muhammad being born in the north? Murtala, a northerner, fought on the side of Nigeria against the secessionist Biafra from the east.
In the time leading to the outbreak of hostilities with Biafra, however, Murtala Muhammad did not hide his feelings that peace talks or not, war was coming, and that arrangements for this inevitability were being made. The next day on September 21st, 1967, Lieutenant Colonel Murtala Muhammad made a radio broadcast in Benin City, in which he declared that anybody who stood in the way of his soldiers would be viewed and regarded as a rebel.
At this point in our story, I need you to answer this question. Do we surrender ourselves to destiny, or does destiny surrender itself to us? General Murtala Muhammad happened to be born in the northern part of Nigeria at a time where tensions were rising between all the major ethnic groups of the newly formed nation. He then also happened to be in the Nigerian army at the time where this tension was at its highest. This was the Nigerian Civil War. Some might argue that during the Civil War, General Murtala Muhammad actively participated in shedding the blood of fellow Nigerians. You could also argue that he was just doing his job as a military man and it was his duty to fight the war to the best of his abilities. And however you look at it, General Murtala Muhammad was a great military commander. But following the event of the Civil War, it became apparent that the wounds that have now emerged in this newly formed nation was going to need a lot of time to heal. People soon became unhappy with the then head of state, Yakubu Gowon, as his administration did little to ease the ethnic tensions following the events of the Civil War. Something had to be done about this, and not long after the events of the Civil War, the head of state, Yakubu Gowon, was ousted in a military coup. The coup plotters decided Murtala Muhammad, due to his exploits in the Civil War, was the man to lead the nation forward. Remember that question I asked you earlier? If your answer was you surrender yourself to the will of destiny, destiny had a cruel fate for General Murtala Muhammad. As barely a year into his tenure, he was assassinated on his way to work.
Murtala Ramat Muhammad remains the youngest Nigerian head of state to die in office and the only one to die before the age of 40. Many monuments in the country are dedicated to his memory, the chief of which is the Murtala Muhammad International Airport in Lagos. His portrait also adorns the 20 Naira note, the only Naira note to feature a military man.
Researching this story, I am very, very conflicted. General Murtala Muhammad was actually a very, very great man, and in a very short space of time, he achieved far more than most of us could dream of achieving in a lifetime. But with every great person in history, what I started to realize is they are very, very complicated and nuanced characters. Do we surrender ourselves to the will of destiny, or does destiny surrender itself to our will? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to like, share, and subscribe.
Fellow Nigerians, events of the past few years have indicated that despite our great human and material resources, the government has not been able to fulfill the legitimate expectations of our people. The armed forces, having examined the situation, came to the conclusion that certain changes were inevitable.